What's good, everybody? The last fight I'm going to go over from Road to the Title Season 3, Episode 5, is the Dale Minner versus Darren Godfrey fight. So, this was a good fight. It was entertaining, and I liked what I saw from both guys for the most part. I think there was definitely some things that either should have been called or at least acknowledged by the refs, and we'll go over it, but I mean, it is what it is. It was a good scrap. It was a middleweight fight. Both guys were similar in age. Um, so Dale, he seemed like he could eat a slap, man. He definitely looked like he could eat a slap. And I think that for somebody who's making like their first appearance in a slap fight, he really did have a tough draw because Godfrey is definitely an experienced fighter. So, out of everybody that you could pull in the competition in the first round, this was a very tough pull for Dale. So, it was impressive that he was able to do so well against him. Um, and yeah, so we'll start with Dale. So 5'9", 186 pounds from Illinois. He gave me heavy Vern Cathy vibes, man. Heavy Vern Cathy vibes. True solid middleweight. Looked solid. Looked like he had that farm boy strength. So yeah, it gave me heavy Vern Cathy vibes, and he's a true solid middleweight, man. He looked pretty big for the weight class. Not tall, but thick. Um, and I mean, he's a father, family man, and he looks it, man. He just looks like a cool dad, dude. Like he straight up does. Um, Shout out to Tyler, his son. He's a friend of the channel. Tyler, thanks for the support. And yeah, you want to talk about like the classic American father, man? It looks like him. It looks like him. He had a cool story too. He had some MMA experience, and then his career fizzled out when he hurt his knee. So again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like, part of what makes Power Slap so cool is actually the stories of these people, man. Like, these people want to be there. There are people that are waiting for this opportunity that would have done it if somebody else didn't want to do it. So the second you understand that, it just makes this sport so much more palatable. But yeah, it was a cool story. If a lot of guys, there's some other guys that I know on the roster that were MMA guys that just never really made it in MMA and just never really got to fulfill that void of like competing under the bright lights. So you could tell that was this for Dale. And yeah, I thought he did great for his first time, man. For Darren, guy from the UK, 5'10", 183 and a half pounds. So not the biggest middleweight. You could even tell he looked skinnier than Dale. But this guy has some power, man. Again, it was a tough draw for Dale because Godfrey has some crazy combat experience, man. He had a bunch of boxing fights. I want to say he said he won like some titles in boxing and then also in bare knuckle. So, I mean, the guy can take a shot, although in Power Slap it's a little different because you're going to get hit clean, as opposed to boxing where you can roll with it, or even bare knuckle. But you knew he'd be able to take a shot. And more importantly, you'd know that he wouldn't be fazed by the bright lights. So you saw like in the Luke fight, I mean, you could tell it was a deer in headlights, literally. Like, that's part of what I think happened with him and why he hit off count. So you knew that wouldn't happen with Darren based on his experience. So yeah, similar slap scores. Not that matters at all, but very similar. And yeah, so Darren won the toss and he was slapping first. And on Darren's first slap, I thought it was a club, man. I thought it was a club. I thought they missed this call. I thought it should have been a point taken. I mean, on the replay, like if you stop it right when it made contact, his hand was like sideways. It literally looked like a karate chop right to the temple. I mean, it didn't end up mattering because obviously it didn't go the full distance, but I think that should have been called, man, because I've said it and I'll say it again, like, there's compounding damage in fights. So it's like, yeah, he ate the club, but man, You to think that that didn't affect him moving forward is crazy. So it's like, not only did you eat a club, you didn't even get like the point taken away from it, so that like it would kind of offset, so to speak. I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was a club. I thought they should have called it. One thing that I have to say about Dale, this was really the only thing I didn't like from his performance in this fight, was that I really didn't like how he braced for the slap. So not only was first his chin was straight up in the air, exactly like DeFrank did in the first episode, and DeFrank said after the episode that he regrets doing that. And again, you really don't want your chin up in the air. There's absolutely nothing in the rule books that says that your chin has to be straight up in the air. And it's way easier to hit that way. It's way more vulnerable. So I really didn't love that his chin was pretty high up in the air. And I also didn't like that he was leaning forward. It was pretty similar to the Seekman fight. I had mentioned that I didn't love how forward he was leaning. And I get that. I think that you have to touch the table, but I'd still love to see people stand a little more straight vertically, because the closer you get to your opponent, the easier it is for them. So you really want to be maximizing the distance between you and your opponent at all times if you can. I get that there's something to be said for being balanced. Like Trujillo likes to lean against the table because he thinks it's like a third leg for him. And who knows, mate, if that's why, then okay, I can understand it and I'll shut up, but I just don't really love it. And then yeah, he was leaning forward, and I did like how he was breathing though. Like right before the slap, he would take deep breaths and then brace. Again, two ways to take a slap. You can roll with it or you can clinch. But yeah, anyway, I thought it was a club by Darren. I thought they should have taken a point, but they didn't. So it was good by Dale. I mean, he ate it. He ate it and he was screaming. I absolutely loved this guy's energy. How can you not? And then on Dale's first slap, all right, so right off the bat, Godfrey's shoulders were hunched up. And you'll notice when Dale went to measure, like he literally hit his shoulder when he was trying to measure. His shoulder was clearly obstructing the path to the target for Dale. And I'm not saying there's no call for that. Like it's not a flinch, but he even said something. He said like his shoulders are up, and the refs didn't acknowledge it at all. And I thought that was bad by them. Again, there's nothing you can do. You can't take a point away, but he hadn't stopped that. You can most certainly tell him to lower his shoulders. I mean, so I didn't like that they didn't do that. I think they should have addressed it, but regardless, on Dale's first slap, it was a great slap, man. Super, super solid slap. And it was clean, despite a flinch from Darren. So Darren flinched, no point. It was just a warning. And so Dale got the slap again. And Dale's second slap of the first round was a monster, man. It was a monster. Godfrey did show a great chin. He ate some good slaps from Dale. And but you can tell after the second slap that there was like 2 seconds where Godfrey was frozen in time. Like he was on his feet, but he was not there. You could straight up tell. It was like 2 to 3 seconds that he didn't even know where he was. And so you can really tell that Dale has some power. And there was still some movement I think, on the second slap from Dale by Godfrey. And Dale was still able to land pretty clean and very powerful. So yeah, I was impressed with Dale's striking. And then on Darren's second slap, dude, this was an absolute monster. It was an absolute monster. One thing I did notice from Dale was that on his second slap, the one that he went down on, I mentioned his breathing and his brace in the first one. It seemed like he was off count on his brace. It seemed like he wasn't all the way braced when he took the shot, and I really think that hurt him. Dale, if you're listening to this, drop a comment and let me know if I'm right on that, because it seemed like you were still in between 2 and 3 on your breaths and your brace, and I really think that could have affected you. But anyway, it was a monster shot right on the chin. Again, Dale's chin was kind of out in the air, so he was really making it a lot easier to hit. But you can't take anything away from Godfrey's slap on that. That was a monster hammer. And yeah, so it knocked Dale down, and yeah, you could tell when Dale hit the ground, like when the mouthpiece comes out, it was over. Not because like there was no quitting that dude, but again, it was just a monster shot, and it landed right on the chin, and that is exactly where you want to land if you want to knock somebody out. So kudos to Darren on that. It was a good slap. Again, he didn't look like a huge middleweight. Like he wasn't even that solid. He looked a little bit skinny for middleweight, but he packed some power. I don't even necessarily think it was. I mean, it was definitely a powerful shot, but I think that one was more just right on the absolute button. So yeah, good shot from Darren. For Darren, it was a good win. He definitely looks like a problem. I could see him doing well against some of the other middleweights that we've seen so far. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes past the second or third round. I really wouldn't. I think there's definitely still some middleweights that we have to see that I'm looking forward to seeing. I know the Chief's coming up eventually, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Chief for sure. For Dale, I'd love to see him again, man. I hope that Power Slap gives him another chance. Again, I think he ate a club that was uncalled on the first slap. To think that a karate chop to the temple doesn't do something to you moving forward in a fight is absolutely ridiculous. It definitely does. Yeah, and I thought he showed a good chin. He ate the first karate chop, and I mean, he didn't go out cold on the second one, which was that shot that put Dale down. That's the best shot that Godfrey can throw. Like, I find it hard to believe that he can throw a better shot than that. So tough break for Dale. Again, super tough matchup, and he was able to he was in this fight at all times. So I really hope that we see Dale again. And yeah, I mentioned this in the last one. So we had two great episodes, and then we had a couple that weren't so great. And so it's just really good to see it trending back up. Again, I really think that Power Slap had to slip those stinkers in there in between to get them out of the way. So good sign there. Also, dude, I saw the preview coming up. Bro, they showed Dakota versus Riley. Dude, sign me the fuck up. I cannot wait to see that fight. I'm so glad they showed that, because I just cannot wait to see that. And so if you do the math, like if Riley ends up fighting Dakota, then that means that it's down to DeFrank, Josh, Shockey, and Gunther. And so those are some good matchups right there too. Which one would I like to see? If I'm matchmaking, so you got Dakota versus Riley, that's a banger. Dude, if they did DeFrank versus Josh, that would be a banger. And then Gunther versus Shockey, I think would be a great fight. Yeah, seems like some great fights to come. I was happy with this episode. I was happy with this fight. Good scrap by both guys. I really hope we see Dale again. And obviously we're going to see Darren again in the second round. So, yeah, good scrap, boys. And we'll see you next week.